By the time you're done watching this video, you will literally know everything you need to know about an emotional affair or emotional cheating. You will also know what to do about it and how to protect your relationship. I will also give you a step-by-step guide for what to do if you find yourself or even your partner entangled in an emotional affair or is emotionally cheating on you. So let's jump right to it. So then, how do we define emotional cheating, an emotional affair, or emotional infidelity? An emotional affair is when a person gives and receives intimacy, emotional support, and companionship from somebody who is not their intimate partner. Our clients who have emotionally cheated tell us that while they are in an emotional affair, they feel more emotionally intimate. They feel at ease, relaxed, and way happier with the person they're having the affair with than they are with their partner. Our clients also tell us that when they're having an emotional affair, they experience this increased desire to be physically intimate with the person they're having the affair with, coupled with a reduced desire to be physically intimate with their partner. Described in another way, emotional infidelity or an emotional affair is when your partner feels like you do not have time or energy for them, while you're expending that time and energy with somebody else in an emotionally intimate way. Remember, you do not have to be sleeping with somebody for it to be an emotional affair. Spending your time and energy is the affair. Even if no sex or physical intimacy is happening whatsoever, this type of an emotional affair can be equally devastating and sometimes even more devastating than full-blown sexual affairs. Partners of people who are involved in an emotional affair typically report feeling betrayed, fooled, lied to, hurt, and undesirable, both emotionally and physically. Now, here are a couple of things that might surprise you. Most of the clients that we see for emotional affairs report two very striking facts. The first one, and hold on to your seat, is that they were never looking for an affair to start with. The second one, and might I recommend you sit down for this one, is that even while they were having an emotional affair, they didn't even recognize that they were having an emotional affair. In our interviews with these clients who have had emotional affairs, almost with no exception, they reported that something was fundamentally broken about their relationship with their intimate partner, and that was something that they didn't know how to fix or did not know how to approach. They then went and found solace and comfort in the company of somebody else. They started talking and sharing with somebody outside the marriage, and therefore felt emotionally attached to that person that they shared with, and that was how their emotional affair started. As their bond with the person they were having the affair with strengthened, they found less and less reason to try and fix their own relationship. In our research, we found that there's a correlation between the strength of the bond that develops in the affair and how likely it might turn into a sexual affair. So how does emotional cheating, emotional affairs, or emotional infidelity start? If I'm honest with you, if the frequency by which we're seeing new couples that come in because of emotional infidelity is any indication, emotional infidelity might be reaching epidemic levels. We live at a time that obliges us to keep running all the time. We walk, talk, eat, and work, and even drive fast. How we fall in love doesn't seem to be an exception. We do that fast too these days. Our lifestyle also seems to be keeping us in constant contact with other people all the time. From our phones and gaming consoles being gateways to meeting other people, to meet and to socialize, to the many, many hours we spend with colleagues at work and with workout buddies in the gym, or simply being out on the town meeting random strangers, we are simply bombarded by countless possibilities to meet new people. Some of these people are inevitably interesting and handsome. What starts as a harmless friendship that you strike up with somebody you met at the gym can very quickly turn into an emotional affair or emotional cheating, if the conditions are ripe for that. It's important to remember that emotional affairs fly under the radar, and most of the time we're not even aware that they're happening as they're happening. And sometimes we're not aware that they're happening until it's literally too late. For example, imagine this. Imagine that new person that you met in the gym becomes somebody that you can vent to about your relationship over a smoothie in the gym's bar. After all, isn't that what friends are for? The thing is this though, if you are confiding in your new friend with the problems and frustrations of your personal relationship, then you're creating a very intimate bond with that friend, and at the same time, you're cutting off your intimate partner from that bond that you're creating. The implication of that is two-sided. The first is that your partner is no longer the person you're confiding in with your problems and frustrations, making it quite literally impossible for them to know what it is that is bothering you, bugging you, or what it is that they can do to help you. The second implication of that is that your new friend becomes somebody you more and more depend on for emotional support, making it inevitable that at some point they're going to look very, very attractive. They're going to seem to you like they're much more appealing and much more understanding of you than your intimate partner is. Said in another way, if you are criticizing your partner to your friend, you're putting your friend in a place where they are much more capable of meeting your needs because they know what your frustrations are. And that is exactly why emotional affairs or emotional cheating can be unbelievably devastating to your marriage or to your long-term relationships. Nobody wants to vent about the same thing in the same way twice in the same day. So if you're venting to your friend, you're definitely not venting to your intimate partner. But here's the kicker. The only way you can actually get your needs met in a relationship with your intimate partner is if you do vent to your intimate partner and if your intimate partner has learned from you what it is that you need. So if you are only telling your friend what your needs are, the only person who can meet your needs is now your friend, no longer your intimate partner. Then there is no way in God's green earth where they will be able to find out what is frustrating you so that they can meet your needs. And let's not ignore another fundamental fact about relationships. Simply put, that fact is this, is that emotional vulnerability is a prerequisite to physical vulnerability. And the cycle kind of looks like this. Being emotionally connected leads you to want to be more physically connected, which then makes you feel even more emotionally connected, which then makes you feel more physically connected, and so on and so forth. So suffice it to say that if you do not feel safe enough to speak with your partner, then you're not going to feel safe enough sleeping with them, which then makes you grow apart even further. Which is why this new emotional intimacy with your new friend can very easily turn into physical intimacy. For most of our clients that we helped through emotional infidelity and emotional affairs, the most hurtful and painful consequence of them being emotionally cheated on is that sense that they were deceived or betrayed or lied to. Any part of one's life that is kept secret from their intimate partner can have catastrophic effects on the trust that a couple has. Alright, so at this point you might be wondering, well, is there like a trajectory for affairs? What are the stages of emotional affairs, emotional infidelity, or emotional cheating? Our research and clinical experience on the topic suggest that emotional affairs and physical affairs have a somewhat intertwined trajectory. That is to say, for the most part, both emotional affairs and physical affairs start in the same way. The only difference is physical affairs or sexual affairs take one step further after an emotional affair. So then what are these stages of affairs? Stage 1 is friendship and closeness. So this would be a stage where you would meet somebody that you feel comfortable and happy talking to and sharing with, other than your intimate partner, of course. You feel a connection. Some people describe it as chemistry. It feels innocent, and most people say that it very much feels like a friendship. Most likely, no foul play is intended in this stage. It is simply an attempt to seek comfort and solace in the companionship of somebody else, and being able to vent and talk freely and feel understood. It can happen at work, it can happen at the gym, it can happen online, it can pretty much happen anywhere. Stage 2 is protecting your new relationship. At this stage, you would start feeling dependent on your new relationship. You start experiencing some level of anxiety of what would happen if your partner or if your family or if your friends found out about your new friend and disapproved of your friendship or threatened to make your partner aware of what is going on. You therefore decide to keep it a secret. Likely you'll find that you'll comfort yourself with thoughts like, I'm not doing anything wrong anyways. It is simply that you're not ready to deal with the questioning of friends or family or your partner about this new relationship that you're developing. In a way, keeping it secret like this makes it even more fun and more exciting. It makes you want to protect it even more. Stage 3 is more than just talking. In this stage, you start incorporating your new friend into your life in some way, shape, or form. You might go out to lunch together, for example, or get in the habit of working out together 3 days a week. You simply find ways to spend physical time with. And by that I mean time in their presence, not necessarily being intimate. In a way, it is like the beginning stages of dating someone. But of course, you're telling yourself that you guys are going out as friends. Stage 4 is physical intimacy. This would be the stage that separates an emotional affair from a physical affair. At this stage, you have established a very strong bond and feel very, very connected to the person you're having the affair with. It starts getting overwhelming, and the only release you can think of is being physically intimate with them. It's at this point that an emotional affair would turn into a full-blown physical and sexual affair. Sometimes these affairs can actually last for years, and sometimes they even end up in marriage. In other occasions, getting to this stage is the beginning of the end for the entire affair in both its physical and emotional forms. Most likely, however, reaching this stage ends the fantasy of this perfect relationship that you had conjured up in your mind, as the relationship that you pinned so much of your hope on becomes an endless source of drama, anxiety, stress, and heartbreak. So what are the signs that you're having an emotional affair? The first sign is you're thinking about the person you're having the affair with all the time. We've all been there, obsessing about somebody that we want to be with. The difference here, though, is that you're obsessing about being with somebody other than your intimate partner. This might sound a little too obvious, but when it comes to emotional affairs, it's actually quite confusing, because that person you're thinking of all the time is somebody that you already know. And the confusing part is this: how do you know the difference between thinking of somebody as a love interest or just as a very good friend? Think about it. It's actually much more confusing than it sounds. Also, the fact that you are in a relationship makes you doubt yourself even more. This is something we see in our work with clients all the time. When it comes to affairs, people very seriously start doubting how they feel, both about their partner and about the person that they're interested in. If one of the first things you're doing when you wake up in the morning is checking that person's Facebook profile, or checking when they were last online, or getting into some social media to find out what they did last night, then likely romantic feelings are involved. The second sign is your partner knows absolutely nothing about it. In normal circumstances, if you meet somebody and you make a new friend and you're really excited about them, the first person you go to tell about this is your partner. In emotional affairs, however, things don't exactly work that way. You will find that you're hiding that relationship from your partner for one of two reasons. The first is maybe you don't want them to get jealous. The second, which I find more interesting, is you don't know how to explain it to your partner. In any case, hiding that new friend from your partner is happening for a reason. And that reason is usually called guilt. In the rare occasions that maybe your partner knows about your new friend, when that topic comes up, you'll find that you're getting anxious all of a sudden. And you'll find yourself automatically trying to make it sound like this person is not important to you at all. But hey, both you and I know this is not true. They are important to you. The third sign for an emotional affair is that you will find yourself making mental comparisons between your partner and the person you're interested in. In a way, your mind is studying the possibility that that new person you met might be a good replacement for the partner that you currently have. You will find your mind wondering what life would be like with that other person that you're interested in. Would it be better than your life with your partner? Would it be different? Would it be more exciting? Questions like these will come to your mind often. You'll also start finding yourself sharing some of the good news in your personal life with the person you're interested in before you actually share them with your partner. The fourth sign I have for you is that you're going to feel changed in a way. You'll find that you have a little bit of a different behavior or a different vibe when you meet that person that you're interested in. Maybe you'll find yourself doing new things that you've never even considered before, like doing yoga or Pilates, or taking your bicycle out for a ride, or going to the gym to stay in shape. Or of course, none of these things is wrong. You might want to check your intentions. Who are you exactly doing this for? In general, if you feel like you've become more attractive, funnier, hotter, or just in general a better version of yourself, you're most likely trying to impress your new crush. You want to get their attention. You want to impress them. In short, you want to make it easier for them to spend time with you. The next sign is that you'll find yourself starting to make sacrifices. So this might look something like this. Your partner asks you to leave work early so that you can go have dinner together. You say, no, I'm very busy, I can't do it today. But then the person you're interested in suggests that you go for drinks after work, and you decide that it's more important to go have this drink than to finish the work that you have to finish. If you find yourself in a place where you're making sacrifices, whether personally or professionally, to be with a person other than your intimate partner, then you're most likely having an emotional affair. You want to make these sacrifices because you want to spend time with them. And the more time you get to spend with them, the more dangerous the situation becomes. The next sign is you'll have deeper conversations and there's going to be mystery in the air. So what I mean by that is you're going to find yourself starting to vent to your crush about your relationship, about the negative things about your relationship, of course. In return, you'll find that maybe your crush isn't necessarily being super clear whether they're dating somebody. They leave it hanging up in the air. It creates this sense of mystery. And both of you are kind of doing this dance where you're letting the other person know very subtly that you're open to something without coming right out and saying it. And the last sign, even though that's probably an obvious one, is that you start getting physically intimate with them. After watching this video, if that happens to you, I hope you're not surprised. At this point, many people who were in an emotional affair are actually quite surprised that it went that far. The reason for that, as we said earlier, is that most people never go into these relationships wanting an affair or wanting to get physical with somebody else. Now, don't get me wrong. It is true that the vast majority of emotional affairs do not turn into a sexual affair. It is also true that your mind loves playing games. If you ever find yourself having sex with your partner and thinking about that somebody else, then your feelings for them are definitely reaching a dangerous level. But of course, I'm willing to bet good money that you already knew that. So at this point, you're probably wondering, so what are some signs that my partner is having an emotional affair or is emotionally cheating on me? So there are 6 main signs that you want to be looking out for. The first one is that your partner starts retreating from you and starts being overly critical of anything and everything that you do. To be clear, between any couple there will be some pet peeves. In one way or another, you'll always be getting on each other's nerves. But this is not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about a state where your partner is overly critical. It is a time when you feel like there is nothing that you can do that is right. If that is happening in your relationship, you might want to be a little more vigilant about the possibility of your partner having an emotional affair. The second sign is extreme secrecy. If you find your partner acting old James Bond-like about their phone screen or about their computer screen, if they seem nervous or jumpy if you walk in on them texting or using something on their computer, this is a possible telltale sign that they might be having an emotional affair or are emotionally cheating on you. The third sign is your partner taking interest in things that did not interest them before. So if your partner never really liked yoga or Pilates and then suddenly you see them going to yoga and Pilates 5 days a week, or conversely, if your partner never really showed an interest in, I don't know, football or baseball, and then suddenly they want to go out every weekend and watch the game with some other people, then that might be a sign that they're emotionally cheating on you or that they're having an affair with somebody else. The fourth sign is a departure in norm in their working habits. So if you find that your partner is suddenly spending way too much time at work and coming home every day at 10 p.m. because there are new projects, or if you find that suddenly work is sending your partner out on trips every weekend or every other weekend, this is also potentially a sign that they're actually using this time to spend it with somebody else that they're having an emotional affair with. The fifth sign is a new weird obsession with somebody. If you find that your partner is becoming obsessed about this new person in their lives and are constantly bringing them up, bringing their attributes or qualities or things they've done or their opinions, then it's likely that your partner is establishing an emotional connection with that person and or is having an emotional affair with them. The sixth and final sign is that you start feeling like your partner is very cold and distant from you, and as much as you try to understand, you can't seem to figure out why. If that is happening, it is likely because they're expending their emotional energy with the other person that they're having an emotional affair with, and therefore are becoming less and less invested in their relationship with you. So at this point, you're probably wondering, so hey, is there anything I can do to protect my relationship from emotional affairs or emotional infidelity? So in this video, I'll suggest to you 8 things you can do to protect your relationship from the possibility of an emotional affair or emotional infidelity. Let me start by saying this. In the case of emotional infidelity or emotional affairs, prevention is better than the cure. What I mean here is, once an emotional affair has actually started, it becomes exponentially more difficult every day for it to stop. So nipping the underlying causes that could lead to an emotional affair in the bud before it actually gets to that point is definitely a better way to go. Not only would that reduce the possibility of an emotional affair actually happening, it would also very much improve the possibility of your relationship getting better and better. So here are 8 things that you can do to bulletproof your relationship from the possibility of an emotional affair. Number 1 is to spend quality time together. No, sitting silently next to each other on a couch watching Game of Thrones together does not qualify as quality time. Quality time is a time where you're exclusively focused on your partner. Number 2, Plan your quality time together the same way you plan important appointments. So what we mean here is put it on your calendar, put it on repeat, set reminders for yourself, treat it like a meeting that is actually important to you. We get a lot of pushback from our clients when we suggest that to them. We are busy. It is very difficult to make time, they say. And that's exactly the point. We're not suggesting that you have to spend quality time with your partner every day. What we are suggesting is for you to set aside a few hours every week or on the weekend to spend time together that is quality time. So doing your grocery shopping does not really count here. It has to be a time where you can actually focus on each other and enjoy each other's company. Number 3 is spend time apart. So this might come as a surprise, seeing that we suggested in number 1 and 2 that you have to spend time together. Yes, we definitely encourage you to spend quality time together. Equally as important, though, is spending time apart. You cannot miss something that you always have. A little bit of distance can actually go a long way in keeping your relationship fresh and keeping you excited about spending time with each other. Number 4, fight hard, but fight fair. One of the things that we get asked by our clients a lot when they come to see us for couples counseling is for a way for them to stop fighting. For me personally, I always find this part hilarious. And I reply to my clients that there is nothing on God's green earth anybody can do to stop a couple that lives together from fighting with each other. As a matter of fact, fighting every once in a while is actually a healthy sign in a relationship. It means that you trust each other enough to voice your concerns and to voice your frustrations to your partner. This is a good thing. It is also a natural thing. The problem with fighting is not the actual fighting. The problem with fighting is when couples decide to fight dirty. Fighting dirty is knowing your partner's insecurity and jabbing them while you're fighting with them about that insecurity, whether to win the point or to win the argument. So that's what we mean by fight hard but fight fair. Fight all you want, yell, scream, however it is that you're feeling, make that known to your partner. At the same time, be fair and do not attack their insecurities just to win a point. Point number 5 is express your grievances when they happen. I cannot stress this one enough. Very often we see couples who do fight and who do express grievances to each other. They express grievances that happened 6 months ago or 2 years ago, or sometimes when they even started dating. The problem with that is that it is not relevant to what is happening today. By the time that grievance has been brought up, the other partner may have even forgotten the details of how that happened or why. There is no better time to express your grievance with something your partner did than the time the grievance actually happened. Do not delay speaking about your grievances. Just remember to do so in a fair way. Number 6, prioritize being kind over being right. Yes, sometimes you're 100% correct, and your partner is just being a hard-headed a-hole. That is true. That is correct. Sometimes this will happen. Here's the question though. What is more important to you? Your relationship or being right about the exact date the Empire State Building was built, for example? Or whatever the hell else it is that you would be arguing about. Sometimes it is substantially wiser to let something go than to keep pressuring your partner until they admit they were wrong or that you were right. Number 7, respect comes before love every single time. Let's face it, how much you love your partner will always fluctuate. And that's okay. Sometimes you love them more, sometimes you love them less. It is actually impossible to love your partner the same way at the same intensity all the time. This is not even your choice. It depends on how your partner is treating you and how life is treating you at a specific point in time. That is the very nature of feelings. They fluctuate. Being respectful, however, is your choice. Being respectful has absolutely nothing to do with how your partner is treating you or how work is going or how hot the day was today. It is something that you have 100% control over all the time. Think of it this way. If you are respectful to your partner, you will have a decent relationship until you come to a point where you get the fuzzy feelings back. The reverse is not true, however. Even if you have all the fuzzy, warm, loving feelings in the world and you do not respect your partner or your partner does not respect you, your relationship will disintegrate. So to recap, Always be respectful, even if you're not feeling loving. Number 8, apologize when you're wrong and forgive when you've been hurt. Look, there's no getting around it. In a long-term relationship, you're gonna mess something up really bad every once in a while. There is absolutely no avoiding that. I would recommend not even trying. When you do F up, a genuine I am sorry can go a long way in patching things up. In our practice, we typically find that men struggle with this one more. It is often very difficult for men to say I'm sorry when they feel like they've messed something up. In the same vein, in a long-term relationship, your partner is bound to do something that hurts you, even if they don't mean to. It is not a choice, it will happen. Forgiving small indiscretions and allowing for life to move on without resentment building up also goes a long way in making sure a long-term relationship works well, and therefore reduces the risk of an emotional affair. In our practice, we typically find that women struggle more with forgiveness, in the same way that men struggle more with saying they're sorry. So what is the difference between a friendship and an emotional affair? All the research and our clinical experience with working with couples who have experienced emotional cheating or emotional affairs suggests one simple fact almost unrefutably. And that fact is this: the vast majority of emotional affairs start up as friendships. A seemingly innocent friendship can very easily transform into emotional infidelity or an emotional affair. How that happens is when your new friend becomes a confidant about the troubles and the grievances that you have about your intimate partner. Typically, when you confide in a friend with your grievances about your own relationship, they will confide back in you with grievances in their relationship. And voila, we have the perfect recipe and the perfect storm of emotional cheating brewing, as you both exchange grievances about your partners and about your relationships. So you might be asking yourself, so how do I know if what I'm having is an emotional affair or a genuine friendship? So here are the 2 ways that you can find out. Ask yourself these 2 questions. Question 1, are you keeping your friendship or parts of your friendship a secret from the people that are closest to you? Question 2 is, are you feeling physically attracted to your friend? If you answer yes to any of these 2 questions, the best case scenario is that you are at the beginning of a very slippery slope, heading straight into an emotional affair. The most likely scenario, if you have answered these 2 questions with a yes though, is that you are already in an emotional affair. The only thing is, you probably haven't realized it yet. So how often do emotional affairs happen? Our research suggests at least 1 in every 4 couples is entangled in some kind of a sexual or physical affair during the course of the relationship. The problem with these figures are, much in the same way as when we're polling people about them getting sexually abused, a lot of people flat out lie. So just to illustrate, when we poll women, for example, about being sexually abused at some point in their life, 1 in 4 women reports that she was sexually abused during her lifetime. Our clinical experience suggests, however, that the numbers are actually substantially higher than this, because a lot of people are embarrassed or do not want to report that they were abused. The same is true about the prevalence of affairs. We believe that the numbers are actually substantially higher than the 1 in 4 that we mentioned earlier. It is just that a lot of people either don't report it or flat out lie about it when they're asked. To further complicate matters, an emotional affair is very different than a physical affair, and people have very different definitions for what an emotional affair is. As we suggested earlier in this video, many of our clients who were in an emotional affair did not even recognize that they were in an emotional affair. So when we take into account emotional affairs, emotional cheating, including those that are conducted purely online, we at Naya clinics estimate the prevalence of some type of an affair to be, in the most conservative estimate, 50% of all couples. But that includes all types of affair, whether emotional or physical. It is worth noting, however, that it's practically impossible to provide an accurate number for the exact prevalence of affairs. So then what on earth possesses people to have an emotional affair? In our work and our research, we have identified 8 reasons that lead people to emotionally cheat, have an emotional affair, or commit emotional infidelity. In a moment, I will tell you all about these 8 different reasons. Before I do that though, I want to touch upon the cardinal rule in all human behavior. Why does anybody ever do what they do? The answer is surprisingly very simple and very complicated at the same time. We do everything that we do to get our needs met. Let me repeat that again for emphasis. We do everything that we do, good, bad, right, wrong, so that we get our needs met. Some of us find functional coping mechanisms, like say going to counseling, or exercising, or meditating, or traveling. Some of us use dysfunctional coping mechanisms. Some examples of those are resorting to drugs or alcohol, or having an affair. The long answer to why people do what they do is far too complex to discuss in this video. This might require you to have a master's degree in clinical mental health or something very similar, but luckily all our therapists do, so you don't have to. So what we did for you here is went back to hundreds of clinical notes that we have collected from clients who were involved in emotional affairs or emotional infidelity, and summarized them for you neatly in 8 points. To be clear, in no way, shape, or form is this list exhaustive. Also, we're not listing them in any order of importance. What they are common themes that we've identified in working with our clients that I thought might be helpful for you to know. What I can assure you of is that this is a very good starting point to answer the question of why is it that people have emotional affairs, commit emotional infidelity, or emotional cheating. Number 1, dissatisfaction with your relationship. Past the honeymoon phase, all relationships have within them reasons for a lot of conflict. And with conflict comes a lot of dissatisfaction. So often we hear from our clients that they paired up with somebody that they thought was fun and exciting and carefree and adventurous. A couple of years into the relationship, their partner's carefree attitude starts feeling reckless, irresponsible, or sometimes even dangerous. The reverse is also very true in our experience with our clients. Clients report having paired up with somebody who is organized and loving and caring. When the novelty of the relationship starts wearing off, their caring behavior starts feeling claustrophobic and controlling. This is the very nature of relationships, and this is something that we see every day in our work with couples at Naya clinics. With that in mind, not everybody has the tools or knows how to navigate these very murky waters. Some people find themselves feeling very helpless and stuck in their situation, that the only way that they can actually conceive of to get some of their needs met is to have someone on the side. Also, it is important to remember that relationships change. It is important to remember that people in relationships change as well. You marry somebody who's athletic and takes very good care of their body. A few years later, with all the pressures of work and marriage and maybe kids, they stop being as good looking as they once did. And you feel cheated out of something that is important to you. Or maybe when you started your relationship with your partner, they were very patient and understanding. But a couple of years into your relationship, you have a child together, or they get promoted into a more stressful job, and now they're all snappy, irritated, and don't seem to be able to be patient with you the way they once were. You again end up feeling fooled or tricked, or more often than not, people feel like they're in a relationship with somebody other than the one they started the relationship with. So then what do? Unfortunately, for a lot of people, it is very difficult to actually enact the changes that they want inside the relationship. And therefore, they go and try to get their needs met with somebody else outside the relationship without really addressing the problems that are in their current relationship. Number 2, poor communication skills with your partner. One of the biggest challenges that we see with clients who have faced emotional infidelity or emotional affairs is poor communication skills. Here's a scenario that happens often in my couples counseling sessions. One of the partners says, "I have so-and-so grievance. I have expressed my grievance to my partner 1,000,001 times." I turn to the other partner and try and confirm with them that their partner had actually expressed their grievance to them. 9 times out of 10, the other partner says, "Today is the first time I've ever heard that from them." So here's the bare, ugly truth from inside the counseling room. It is one thing to believe you have shared your concerns with your partner, and it is a totally different thing to actually accurately and effectively communicate your concerns to your partner. And very often, these two things do not coincide. In other words, you think you said something very clearly. You think you've expressed your grievance very clearly. The fact of the matter is, it is only true that you've communicated clearly with your partner only if your partner has actually understood what you're saying, not if you feel like you've given it your best shot. The sad truth is, most couples believe that they've actually shared their concerns with their partner, and that their partner is deliberately ignoring their concerns. What I see in practice day in and day out is that that is not accurate, and that the communication has fallen very short from accurately expressing what the grievance is to the other partner. So what do a lot of people do if they feel disappointed and let down by their partner? Well, you guessed it. For some people, the answer is to find somebody else that they believe is not going to let them down or disappoint them the way their partner did. And that is how emotional affairs start. Number 3, craving physical affirmation. There's a key fact that anyone in their right mind would be remiss to ignore. As adults, meeting our physical needs in our intimate relationships is part and parcel to having a successful relationship. In other words, you cannot have a good intimate relationship with a partner without having a good physical relationship with them. To be clear, I am not just talking about sex here, although of course sex is part of it. Being hugged or touched or stroked, holding hands, getting a rub, or even just sitting close next to each other and paying attention to each other. These are all parts and components of getting your physical needs met. For some people, the feeling of rejection, feeling alone, feeling isolated, that comes from not getting their physical needs met is so hurtful and is so deep that they simply cannot live without getting these physical needs met somewhere or the other. If these needs are not being met in their intimate relationship, they will step outside their relationship to get them met. An emotional affair can simply start by somebody sitting and looking at you while you're talking to them, paying attention, and actively showing you that they're interested in what you have to say. This is still some level of physical intimacy, even if there's no physical touch involved. Eye contact alone can be part of physical intimacy, but that of course depends on how you define physical intimacy. Number 4, poor impulse control. Let me be perfectly clear about something here. Connecting to another human being is an incredibly gratifying thing. For your brain, it can be comparable to getting a hit of heroin. You probably don't need me to tell you this, but some of us are better than others at fighting the temptation of having a cigarette, or a hit of weed, or even a bag of Oreos. The same is true with feeling listened to and appreciated by others. Some of us are naturally better than others about controlling the impulse of getting more of these hits that you receive in your brain when you feel listened to and appreciated. If you have poor impulse control, receiving random compliments or kind gestures from other people can seem irresistible to you, and all you want to do is get more of those. The reason why this is a problem is because when you are in an intimate relationship, part of the agreement, part of the unspoken agreement I should say, is that your intimate partner is the exclusive provider of these types of intimate hits. Feeling an urge then, or an itch to get these emotional hits from somebody else other than your intimate partner, constitutes emotional infidelity, emotional cheating, or can be the start of an emotional affair. Number 5, poor boundaries. Boundaries are a crucial skill to master to have a good life in general, whether in your intimate relationship, or at work, or with your family, or in any aspect of your life. For example, what you can say to a classmate is not what you can say to a professor. That is a boundary. The kind of joke you can pull off with your best friend, you cannot pull off with your boss. That's a boundary. By the same token, the emotional intimacy that you share with your intimate partner, you cannot share with somebody else. That too is a boundary. So then there's a challenge when you have a loose sense of boundaries. A poorly defined boundary in a friendship can be all that is needed to turn that friendship into an emotional affair or cause emotional infidelity. If you cannot separate between what is appropriate to share with your intimate partner and what is appropriate to share with somebody else, then you're blurring the lines between the different types of relationships in your life, which makes it so much easier to find yourself entangled in an emotional affair or emotional cheating. Number 6, reenacting childhood traumas. As adults, every single one of us, in one way, shape, or form, is trying to recreate their childhood, is trying to recreate an unconscious wound from childhood, in the hopes that now that they're adults, they can mend it. This is a very unconscious process. That means that if you were growing up and you were affected by your father or your mother or your caretakers having an emotional affair or being part of emotional infidelity, then there's a very high likelihood, if you do not become aware of that through counseling or other means, that you will recreate the same type of scenario that happened to you as a child in your adult life. This process is typically entirely unconscious. Nobody ever really decides to cheat on their partner simply to reenact a childhood wound. The fact that it's not conscious, however, does not mean that it's not very deliberate. Please don't take me saying that as absolving yourself from responsibility. In our adulthood, we very deliberately seek out the type that will inevitably lead us to feel the same feelings that we had in our childhood. It is not all doom and gloom though. With proper therapy and counseling, uncovering these unconscious motivations can give you the push that you need so that you do not reenact the same traumas you had in your childhood in your adult life. Number 6, fear of abandonment. This is actually very closely related to the point before. You might very easily find yourself in the middle of emotional infidelity or an emotional affair if you're afraid of being abandoned. Unconsciously, if you have had a lot of experiences, especially growing up, where the people that you emotionally depended on have abandoned you, you would be very on edge if you perceived the possibility of abandonment happening in your current relationship. To manage this unconscious anxiety, some people try to quell it by having more than one emotional attachment at the time. They reason to themselves that this way they have somebody or a relationship to fall back on should the one they are in fall apart. This will also serve another purpose for them. By dividing your emotional energy amongst 2 or more people, you are less and less attached to each individual one of them, and therefore it would hurt less, you reason to yourself, if you lose that person. It really sounds clever on paper, doesn't it? The sad truth, though, is that people who do go that route typically find themselves without all the relationships that they have actually started, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because now they feel abandoned by a number of people that they emotionally depended on, which is exactly where they started. Number 8, reacting to death or a deep loss. Another common reason for having emotional affairs or emotional infidelity is the experience of a death of a loved one or otherwise a deep and tragic loss. The death of loved ones, like a parent or a sibling or a cousin, can contribute to somebody resorting to emotional affairs in one of 2 ways. The first is that it awakens your death anxiety. When we are afraid to die, our knee-jerk reaction is to live and live hard. For some people, that sends them in a frenzy in trying to experience all the things that they maybe are not experiencing right now in their relationship. If the relationship has stopped being exciting to them, they go and try and find excitement in another relationship. If their sex life has been on the fritz, they try and seek some crazy sexual escapades somewhere else. The other contribution death has in a lot of people resorting into emotional affairs is that oftentimes your partner cannot really connect or understand your pain. That inevitably leaves you feeling alone and not understood in your relationship. And so it is so much easier to feel tenderness and connection to somebody who would actually lend you a hearing ear and who can be more understanding of the pain that you're experiencing because of the death. The same is true if you have experienced a significant loss. If you, for example, receive a serious life-threatening diagnosis, then you experience a sense of the loss of health. If you lose your job abruptly, then you lose a sense of security, and so on and so forth. Many people react to these types of losses in the same way I described reacting to death earlier. Do all emotional affairs turn physical? Most people who experience emotional affairs or emotional infidelity, what they were really looking for was empathy and understanding. It is rarely the case that somebody actually set out to find someone only to be physical with. I'm not saying this doesn't happen, I'm saying it is not typically the case. What that means is, when a person finds somebody other than their intimate partner that they can be comfortable with, that they can hang out with, that they can share their thoughts with, spend quality time, feel comfortable, more often than not, this is where it stops. You might be listening to me saying this and then sigh a sigh of relief. Maybe you're saying to yourself, oh yay! Even though I do have a lot of the signs of me being in an emotional affair, it is not that serious because I do not intend for it to get physical. If that is what you're thinking, you are sorely wrong. To put it unequivocally, everything we know suggests that an emotional affair is every bit as serious, if not at times more serious, than having a physical affair. To answer the original question though, do all emotional affairs turn physical? The short answer is no. A bit of a longer answer would be, there's a higher likelihood of having a physical affair if you already have an emotional affair. Emotional affairs at work. So now I would like to discuss emotional affairs at work. Do all emotional affairs start at work? Of course not. With that in mind, the way we live today, we typically spend more time at work than we do at home. It is simply substantially easier to get entangled in an emotional affair at work simply because of the sheer amount of time we spend at work. We are working closely with people. We see them every day. We can schedule meetings. We can observe the mood of our colleagues very closely. It is also very easy to find ways to spend time with somebody from work. At times, it's even easier than spending time with our intimate partner. And yes, of course, while you're at work, you do have work to do. Also, your colleagues are maybe in the desk right next to you or right across the aisle. There are lunch breaks, there are coffee breaks, there are meetings, there are work functions, there are work trips. So yes, of course, not every single emotional affair will start at work or will happen with somebody that you work with. It is also certainly true that the working environment lends itself to making an emotional affair easier. This is not simply an opinion that I'm offering you. It is also the observation of hundreds of clinical notes that we have collected from clients that we worked with who were involved in an emotional affair or emotional infidelity. So here are some concluding remarks about this video. Here is a quick recap of what we've covered. We have covered some fundamental questions about emotional affairs, emotional infidelity, and emotional cheating. We covered the definition of an emotional affair, or if you like, emotional infidelity. We then explained how emotional affairs start and what are the 4 stages of affairs. I then gave you some warning signs that your partner might be emotionally cheating or that they might be involved in an emotional affair. From there, we explained how you can protect your relationship from an emotional affair and how to know the difference between a friendship and an emotional affair or emotional infidelity. We then discussed the prevalence of affairs and what are the numbers. I then covered why people have emotional affairs to start with. And then I discussed with you whether emotional affairs always turn physical. And finally, we explored emotional affairs at work. Please share this video with somebody that you think might find it helpful. And if you have found it helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Tell us about your experiences with emotional infidelity and emotional affairs in the comment section below. And please consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. I invite you to try our relationship map. The relationship map is the best relationship test online. It will give you the results of 10 relationship counseling sessions in less than 20 minutes and at a fraction of the cost. I invite you to try it out now. It will blow your mind. I'll leave the link in the description below.